Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get started in just about a minute. I see that we still have participants joining us for the State of the State webinar. So we'll hold just another minute and then I'll go ahead and get started. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Summer 2023 Early Childhood State of the State, provided to you by the Virginia Department of Education. I'm Jenna Conway, our Deputy Superintendent for Early Childhood. Can you not hear me, Becca? You can hear me. Okay. I think there might be a sound issue with you because we're able to hear this. Welcome to our 2023 Early Childhood State of the State. I'm Jenna Conway, our Deputy Superintendent for Early Childhood, and I'm really pleased to spend the next hour with you sharing accomplishments that we have made together, as well as our aspirations for the future. It is a very full presentation, so we will not have time for questions today, but we will make sure that we share the slides afterwards, as well as the recording, if you want more information or if you want to share with other colleagues. We've got just under 250 participants so far. Very exciting to see all of this interest, and thank you. I know everybody is having a busy summer, and it is the middle of the day, and we greatly appreciate you spending this time with us. All right, next slide, please. In the next hour, we will talk about accomplishment and what's ahead for next year. We'll always start with our shared vision for the future, and then really talk about the different areas in which we work together: access and choice, quality, family engagement, health and safety, regional capacity, and innovation. And then we'll have next steps. If we have any time, I promise to hold it for questions, and you can use the Q&A as we go to pop in your questions. And if we have time, we'll get to them at the end. If not, we can make sure to follow up with an FAQ after the session. Next slide, please. So let's start with our true north, what brings us together in all of our work across our birth to five public-private parent choice system. We are always focused on school readiness, making sure that every child in the Commonwealth has the opportunity to come to school ready. This fall is a big deal for me. Some of you know that I have 3 young Virginians in my household, and my littlest, Paul, is starting kindergarten. And what we want for the state is the same that I want for Paul, really making sure that kids have the opportunity to come to school ready in the areas of literacy, math, self-regulation, and social skills. What we know from last year is over just 60% of our kids entering kindergarten, and this includes all of the kids entering Virginia's public schools statewide, came in ready in all 4 of those areas. And unfortunately, 40%, or 4 out of 10 came in not ready in at least one of those areas. And so the work that brings us together, right, regardless of the name of the outside of the building, the funding source, who you work for, is how do we make sure that we provide access to quality early childhood experiences for our infants, toddlers, and preschoolers that put them on track for success when they enter kindergarten. Next slide, please. We also know in Virginia that there are significant disparities or differences when you look more closely at this data about who has the opportunity to come to kindergarten ready and who doesn't. So that top bar is overall, right? As I noted before, 6 out of 10 kids in the Commonwealth are coming in ready. But when you look at the blue bars that fall beneath that, what you see is those numbers of kids, or the percentage of kids that have the opportunity to come to school ready, drop. When you look at our Black and Hispanic students, down to 48% of our Black students, and just over 4 out of 10 coming ready of our Hispanic students. We see the same is true for our students from our low-income households, for our dual language learners, or kids whose first language may not be English, and our children with special needs. And so when we think about how do we make sure that across the board we work together specifically focusing again on these subgroups that have less opportunity to come to school ready. Next slide, please. We also know that why there are variations in readiness. You see this across the board. So this is a new graph for those of you who have watched some of our presentations before. Across the bottom, you see the names of the 9 ready regions, and then you see the blue dot is the percentage of kids who are coming in kindergarten ready. So if you look at Southwest, 58% of kids in Southwest are coming in ready. The yellow or light orange dot is the percentage of low-income children in that region that are coming in ready. And what you see is while there's a little bit of variability statewide, that really it's a fairly close range, right? With the lowest overall readiness being just about 56% and the highest being 63%. So pretty similar kind of across the regions, but you can look on this slide and see what region you're in. You also see across the regions that are low income, kids coming from low income families are having less opportunity. And that's pretty consistent across the board, across the 9 regions. And you see those drop from sort of low 60s to high 50s down into the low 50s into the low 40s, right? And so really, how do we, recognizing this is a statewide challenge, how do we work together kind of across our regions with all of our kids, but really focused in our kids who have the greatest needs as we think about preparing all kids for kindergarten. Next slide, please. We also know that this matters, and you know this. I'm probably speaking to those who already believe right now, but we have a ton of evidence from Virginia, from across our different public and private early childhood experiences, that the services, the experiences you provide make a difference. And in fact, when we look at our data around school readiness, the kids that we're most worried about are those who are from a low income or otherwise disadvantaged background who report no preschool experience whatsoever. And so why we came in, if you remember this first graph, was 6 out of 10 kids coming in ready. That drops by half for our low-income kids that are coming in and they're reporting no preschool experience whatsoever when they come into kindergarten. So what that means, put another way, is that the experiences that you're providing, whether that's VPI, Head Start, Early Head Start, childcare, family childcare, early childhood special education, are making a difference and really sort of doubling the number of kids that are coming to school ready. Another way to think about this is not just, okay, how do we make sure that kids come to school ready? But when we think about those different elements of readiness, literacy, math, self-regulation, and social skills, as you all know, this is about more than letters and numbers. When I sit and read with Paul before he goes to bed, it's not just about does he know the letters, it's about spending the time with him to understand the stories and the language and the vocabulary and the context around that information. And we know that the school readiness, although those measures might measure things like, do you know the letter sound? It really is an important proxy or approximation of much greater knowledge. And we know that this then ties to later academic success. So what this graph shows you is, and I'll explain it to you because it's kind of complicated, but basically that we know that kids that enter kindergarten ready, we can track them over time, and that the more ready you enter, the more likely you are to be reading on level by 3rd grade. So if you look at this gray bar, what the gray bar tells us is that if you come in scoring very high on your PAL score at the beginning of kindergarten, 92% of them, nearly all of you, will be reading on 3rd grade. And as you go down and you score lower at that beginning of kindergarten, you see the results go down. So on the flip side, if you look at that yellow bar, we know that if you come in least ready into kindergarten, right, 3 years away from 3rd grade, that only half of those kids, our K-3 systems will work as hard as they can, but only half of those kids will be reading by 3rd grade. What this means in another way is that if we can get kids, all of our kids, to look like they're blue or gray when they enter kindergarten, we can almost guarantee putting them on track for success in reading. And we know that once you hit 3rd grade, knowing how to read prepares you to read to learn, which is a really important element of the remainder of your school career. So again, data from Virginia saying it not only matters that we have kids coming to school ready so that they're prepared for kindergarten, but there's a ton of evidence that suggests that getting them to school ready and really focusing on these birth to 5 years helps put kids truly on track for greater success in life, in school, college, career, and beyond. All right, with that in mind, grounding us first in the data about Virginia and why school readiness matters and why we all need to work together to make sure that we move from 60% of kids ready to 80% to 100% of kids ready. Let's talk about how we do that work and our shared vision for the future. You've seen this slide before and this adorable little infant, but just as a reminder, we at the department want to work with you to achieve a holistic vision for school readiness. We believe that all kids are capable of and deserve to enter school ready. We know that's about affordable access to high quality infant, toddler, and preschool experiences. We need more programs to take public dollars, and we need to make sure that we can support them to measure what's happening in the classrooms and support improvement down to the classroom level, to help ensure that there are quality options for all families. We need to reward and fund our programs to meet expectations and focus on our workforce, right? The workforce that supports the workforce, and ultimately work together across our public-private parent choice system to make sure that we're all using the best information available to be a little bit better tomorrow than we are today, and ultimately make sure that more kids have the opportunity to come to school ready, and all of our Virginia working families can trust in our birth to 5 system, can choose the option that makes the most sense for them, their child, and their situation. This is how we break that vision into a set of specific goals. Again, you've probably seen this slide before. I'm not going to read every word on the page. I just want you to know that we think as a team, and we work with our ready regions, and we work with our public providers across the state in each of these areas. So we know it can't just be about, oh, we're just focused on access, but not on quality. It has to be all of these 5 things: access and choice, quality improvement, deeply engaging families as our children's first and most important teachers, health and safety, really making sure that we're partnering with you to keep our infants, toddlers, and preschoolers healthy and safe every day, and supporting the building of our regional infrastructure so that we can help ensure that decisions and policy and practices are customized to meet the need of each of you across the Commonwealth while continuing to promote innovation. So we can not only do great stuff for kids and families in the Commonwealth, but we can be a national leader. We've added this blue bar in recent years really to reflect the importance of the workforce. And I know everywhere we go, whomever we talk to talks about the importance of our educators, the importance of our teachers, and just recognizing across each of these areas of the work, it's important that we get to competitive educator compensation, that we recognize and are supporting every effort to better compensate our educators so that we can achieve our lofty goals together. All right, what I'll do next is go into each of these 5 areas. As I said before, there's a lot of information on these slides. I won't read every word on the slide, but we'll make sure you can get a copy afterwards. And if you've got questions, be sure to use the Q&A function and we'll capture those questions as well. So let's start with access and choice. Really exciting things happening in the Commonwealth as it relates to access and choice. We believe you all are helping us build one of the nation's premier public-private parent choice system. And in response, families are saying they want more. We saw over the course of 22-23 unprecedented demand for early childhood programming. And so we served more than 60,000 children last year. 2,000 children participated in mixed delivery in private settings. That's a 40% increase from the prior year. 21,000 3- and 4-year-olds benefited from Virginia Preschool Initiative, including nearly 1,000 children in private settings, receiving BPI in private settings. We didn't even have that 5 or 6 years ago, and now we've got it across the state. The demand for a child care subsidy program known as CCSP continues to grow steadily to over 39,000 children. We've never served this many children on child care subsidy program. And we've also continued to see our Head Start programs rebound and really working with our communities to make sure that we're maximizing these incredible 2-generation services across our 50+ Head Start grantees statewide. Next slide, please. Put another way, as you see in this slide, across the board, we have more families participating in our publicly funded early childhood program, and you should feel really proud about this. Statewide, it's a 41% increase to where we were pre-pandemic. If you look at this bar graph, you'll see a dip, right? We knew we had a pretty historic dropping out of programs as a result of the pandemic. But Virginia has really responded and then some. And so what you see is we went from 53,000 kids, ballpark, in 2019 to just over 75,000 kids served across our public-private birth to 5 system. So really exciting. And it just represents that more families than ever before are interested in participating in your programming because they know it helps put their kids on track for success. We know this growth is everywhere. We again breaking it down by the ready region. So you see across the bottom of your slide here, the growth, and you just see huge growth everywhere. 59% growth, 121% growth. This chart reflects the growth in mixed delivery and childcare subsidy. So again, all growth in private settings. And you see it goes from 51% to 119% growth. That's more than twice as many kids served this year relative to our pre-pandemic levels. So it's across the state, this growth, which really means across the state, you are providing the services that families are demanding, full day, full year, in family settings, in childcare settings, in faith-based settings, and across our private settings to really meet the need of Virginia's working families. This is a really exciting slide when you think about all of this growth across every pocket of the Commonwealth. We also know that we're serving, going back to the slide about some of our historically underserved groups, we do know that we're serving groups that have been very hard to serve in the past. So we've seen significantly more, 51% more kids participating in rural communities, a lot more infants and toddlers. We know there's still demand. Everywhere I go, I hear about the wait lists in our infant classrooms, but we're serving 62% more infants and toddlers than we've done before, as well as a lot more 3-year-olds across Head Start, VPI, community settings, and mixed delivery. So really exciting that this is across the state and we're making important progress on some of these hard to serve populations. So what is behind this and what is leading to some of this success? So we're very proud to celebrate an accomplishment of being the 3rd state in the country to set rates based on the cost of quality rather than the market rate. So this is a really important shift. If you're a provider who's received childcare subsidy, you should have seen the difference last year, and for mixed delivery, that'll be coming up this year, as well as re-benchmarking for VPI, which really means across the board that we're funding you based on the cost to meet expectations rather than based on the back of the envelope or market rate. We also added this language to the budget and to the code to make sure that this sustains. So it's not just a flash in the pan. This one year you funded us at the right rate, but really systematically across the board, running the numbers, calculating the numbers, and then funding you those public and private programs that take public dollars to meet the expectations across the board. So this is a big accomplishment. And as you see here, Virginia is a national leader in this space. Next slide, please. We are also looking to reduce the burden for families. We know for mixed delivery and VPI that there's no cost for families, and really have worked to align, while still complying with the federal law, the new co-payment structure for our families on the child care subsidy program. So switching away from a really complicated way of calculating co-payments to an easy to understand flat per child fee, and making sure that nobody's paying more than 7% of their income, regardless of how many kids you have in care. What this meant is statewide, as we rolled this out last year in January, that it resulted in the vast majority of families experience a significant decrease in co-payments. So getting the rates right and funding you at the rates to achieve expectations, and then reducing the cost burdens for families, particularly in the child care subsidy program. Next slide, please. We've continued to improve coordinated enrollment statewide. Many of you have worked with your ready regions. We have the 9 ready regions across the state that are working each year to work with providers to maximize all of the resources that are coming in, make it easier for families to find the right choice for them. So we've done self-assessment and planning. We know that all of our ready regions have now hired staff to support coordinated enrollment, and some of our more forward-thinking regions have even piloted technology. So creating a one-stop technological website or location where families can apply, find out the choice that's right for them, determine what they're eligible for, and go from there. We are hoping that we'll take the lessons learned from that and continue to scale that in the future. So exciting work in coordinated enrollment as well. So we've made a lot of progress in the last year, and clearly Virginia families appreciated this as we have unprecedented participation in our publicly funded programs. We think a part of this is about making as many families as eligible as possible, and done that across the board. We've tried to improve the rates or increase the rates so that you're funded to meet the quality expectations, reduce co-payments, and working very closely with our ready regions to better coordinate enrollment to make sure that providers can fill every last slot and that families can choose the right option for them. So where do we go from here? We're going to continue to look and measure family demand and use the funds to address that family demand. This year, up to 2,500 children will benefit from mixed delivery, including 400 infants and toddlers. Up to 27,000 children on BPI with almost 2,000 slots in private settings, and potentially up to 45,000 children on the child care subsidy program. So again, that graph just keeps going up, which means more families want what you are providing. We're evaluating the impact of some of the shifts or changes in how we're funding it to understand what it means for private providers, to understand how it affects compensation. We'll talk about workforce and compensation a little bit later, but really important, as you say to us, I'd like to serve more kids, but I got to be able to hire more teachers. And so to use the data from Virginia to figure out how we continue to help improve in that area. Looking at how we can continue to make it easier for families to enroll and reduce cost burdens, and continuing to work really closely with our ready regions to make your coordinated enrollment in your community work as effectively as possible, while also really hearing from families about what their preferences are and how do we make sure that we continue to match the services to the demand expressed by our Virginia families. Woo! One down, 4 to go. So let's talk a little bit about quality improvement. And again, we think that some of the efforts that you're making around improving quality are also why families are coming to your doors and there's more demand than ever before for our early childhood services. So we are solidly making progress on implementing VQB5. This is our statewide measurement and improvement system for all of our publicly funded birth to 5 programs. We had 7 out of 10 of you participate in practice year 2, and we are getting everybody on board this fall for our first real year, which we think will include upwards of 3,600 sites with 12,000 classrooms. And I put classrooms in quotes because some of you offer classrooms in your family day homes, and we are inclusive. This is family childcare, this is Head Start, early Head Start, childcare, faith-based, and schools. We are very excited and in a great position. After a full endorsement from the Early Childhood Advisory Committee, we took these to the board, and we are a go to go forward or move forward with VQB5, its first real year coming up this fall. Here's what we learned from practice year 2, and we know some of you are in the process right now. You got 2 more days to verify all of your data, but we got 8,000 classrooms last year received feedback multiple times. More than 20,000 users, including 16,000 educators, use LinkB5 and are getting better at using LinkB5. And in turn, we are trying to make LinkB5 work better for you. We completed 19,500, just under 20,000 class observation, which is millions of minutes of insights into what our kids are experiencing and how our educators are doing. And we've had a 500% increase in observers for 2019. So we are in a really good place going into this first real year of VQB5. We also know that getting more resources to our educators is an important part of quality improvement. And so over 17,000 payments went out this year via Recognized B5, up to a max of $2,500 per teacher. This is across the state. If you look at the numbers on this map, you see how many educators registered in each of our areas. So true, again, covering every last corner of the state. This one from just a couple of $1 million to this year represented a $57 million investment of state and federal funds directly in our educators. And we can't thank them enough. I know for my kids' teachers, they are so appreciative of the Recognized B5 payments at Paul's Preschool. And we know that we want to do more, and I'll talk more in a second about that, but just a really significant investment. Thanks to hearing from you about how important Recognized B5 was and recognizing that it supported educators across the state in both childcare and family childcare. Next slide, please. We also have supported, in addition to measuring and providing feedback to thousands and thousands and thousands of teachers, and making sure that we're also, for those childcare and family childcare educators, providing them with a direct financial incentive and recognition of their work, have really focused on supporting your efforts around kids learning. And so we've expanded the number of curriculum options. Last year, we have over 58 approved options, including Stream and 3, which is one of 3 free or low-cost options. 2,000 classrooms this year receiving materials. And we know the box and the books are not enough. So we're most excited about the comprehensive training and coaching that they receive that was completely free, provided by UVA. We added 18 infant and toddler, so a lot more choices for you for babies and little ones, as well as 3 family day home curriculum. We know that more and more of you are using VKRP for 3 and 4-year-olds. We know it's a big lift and really a significant shift for the teachers, particularly for our mixed delivery and Head Start partners. And we really appreciate those. I got my VKRP results, preschool VKRP results back for Paul for the first time this year. And that was really exciting to see how he was doing in each of those areas. We know that a lot of you are completing our micro-credential and early learning and development standards, both in English and in Spanish, recognize the importance of supporting our dual language educators. And we had more than 130 of you participate in our early childhood mental health consultation. This is our intensive coaching that really is intended to support educators and families when we have children whose behaviors that we're finding challenging. We know coming out of the pandemic and the stresses that our kids and families experience, that this type of service, this intensive coaching, has been more needed now than ever before. So where do we go from here? Exciting things happening in the space of quality measurement, improvement, and learning. So the big thing, and what you've probably gotten letters and you've heard about from your Ready regions, is this fall we got to bring everybody on board for VQB5, and we'll start registration in August. It'll be a very exciting time, and you will definitely hear from us. We will also be registering educators for Recognized V5, and we are very excited to know that we are going up to $3,000 per eligible educator this year. So that $57 million is going to go up in terms of the investment that we're making in our childcare and family day home educators. We know you deserve more, but we're excited to kind of continue to increase the amount that you're eligible for each year. We're going to continue to make VKRP and some of our other supports work better for you. So building a mid-year 3-year-old and 4-year-old assessment is a big priority for this year, as well as rolling out our new preschool language and literacy screener, which is known as VALS, a real enhancement of what was formerly known as PALS, to better understand what our kids know and be able to do, and to help support them to be ready for kindergarten, and really part of a broader goal, along with the Virginia Literacy Act, to make sure that every kid is reading by 3rd grade. And we continue to invest in your improvement and supporting you. So we've got from our infant and toddler support network to our advancing effective interactions to coaching and mental health consultation, nearly $60 million invested directly in supporting improvement in childcare, Head Start, and family childcare. And we use the data that comes out of VQB5 to prioritize those classrooms and educators who need us most. So we will continue to make that type of investment in you and the improvement in you and your educators. All right, 2 down, 3 to go. Family engagement. Let's talk about our accomplishments in the last year in this space. So as we recognize that parents are kids' first and most important teachers, and have really focused on partnering with our Ready regions over the course of the last year to build their capacity to support the families in your communities. Each of our Ready regions have stood up family councils that are really shaping the work. We recognize that what families might be looking for in Southwest is different from families in Northern Virginia or Tidewater, and making sure that we're funding our Ready regions to support those family councils in every region of the state. We also provided additional funding using the outside federal preschool development grant to regions, First Spark, Ready Region Chesapeake Bay, and Thrive, Birth to 5, Ready Region Central, received Family Engagement Innovation Grant. So really investing in family engagement because we know it matters, while building sustaining capacity in terms of those family councils. And if you haven't heard about your family council, please make sure to check in with your Ready region about that. Next slide, please. We have also really continued to get information from families to understand what we need to know at the state level to shape policy and practice, as well as sharing information with community leaders across our regions. We've worked with mixed delivery through PDG to amplify voices at the community and state level. In some of our initiatives like VKRP, we're going directly to families, engaging them in focus groups to understand, okay, how does this work well for you? What do you want to know about your young learner? What reports do you understand? What's confusing? How can we better support you as your child's first and most important teacher to support your kids' learning development towards school readiness? And we've also continued to work with groups like our Virginia Promise Partnership, where they've set up and stood up parent advisory groups, and often we engage them. When we have a new form for coordinated enrollment, or we have a new idea for engaging families, making sure that we're going to families directly to say, what do you need? What about this works? What would you change? So that family's voice and family's perspective is informing all of those other 4 goals that we talked about in terms of our big statewide vision and goals. So where do we go from here? Well, the big investment continues to be in our ready regions. We've invested each of them to have staff to support family engagement, and really working on these family councils across the state, standing them up, figure out their role, understanding what their preferences are and what their top priorities are for their region, and figuring out how we kind of come together as a state and use that information to inform statewide policy and practice. We'll continue to engage using federal dollars to get families and do focus surveys of families to sort of find out what's happening for them, with a real focus on those families who are not currently part of the system. If you think back to what I said earlier about, we know the kids that come in at greatest risk of not being ready are kids from low-income households who have no preschool experience. We need to understand what's happening for those families and figure out how we better provide programming to meet their needs so they can help put their kids on track for success. We're also continuing to build out a whole suite of resources for families. So whether that's the online portal for our families who want to understand the health, safety, and quality information about sites, we're kind of building that out. We'll consult with family councils and roll that out next year, as well as making sure that there's a resource hub with tons and tons of resources for families. And then, as I noted before, particularly when it comes to children's learning, thinking about whether it's Stream in 3 or VKRP or other curricular resources, how do we make sure that there's resources available for families? We're also hearing increasingly we need to make sure that those resources are available in other languages. So looking at when we can translate things into Spanish and post them online, as well as looking at how we can work with Ready Regions to produce materials in other languages to make sure we're truly meeting the needs of all of our families across the Commonwealth. Next, we'll talk about health and safety. So this is 4 out of 5 here, and this really speaks to the work of our Office of Child Care, Health and Safety, which you know as our colleagues who help license all of our family child care and child care programs across the state. So in the last year, we've been able to move forward on streamlining 2 sets of regulations, our general procedures, which is really just the kind of the very basics of how do you get a license, and our background checks, revise them, streamline them, and we're currently waiting for approval before we can post those for public comment. Those should be coming soon. We have updated the provider portal to make it a little easier to use and to allow you to submit renewal applications for licensure, registration, and exemptions, requests for modifications, and updated documents. We rolled that out and supported you to do that. And we've updated and released our pre-licensure phase 1 training. And this is really for family day homes and seeking to help them understand what's required, how you apply, and what steps are needed to be successful. We also have worked to streamline the application for licensure. And we know we're continuing to hear from you on ways we can improve, and we welcome that feedback. We've redone the child care website, make it a little more intuitive, a little easier to navigate, to make sure you can get the information that you need both at the top of the page as well as from every page. We have made certain regulations available for home-based programs and pre-service in Spanish. We know this was a demand from a long time, and we know you need more in Spanish, but making sure at least got those resources translated and made available to support our bilingual and multilingual providers. And we've been able to continue to cover, using our relief dollars, the cost of fingerprint-based criminal background checks. And we know that with the high turnover that all of you are experiencing, that you're having to run more and more and more background checks. And so very excited to be able to continue to cover through June of 2024, so another year and change on the cost of the fingerprint-based background checks, while you guys continue to deal with staffing challenges and recover from the pandemic. We have been hard at work in the last year on, in addition to the general procedures and the background checks, which is a little bit more perfunctory, getting into the heart of the actual licensing regs themselves. And so kicking off way back in December of 2021, we've been working with a set of private providers for, I think we met upwards of 15 times for hours and hours to painstakingly go through the regulations page by page and line by line to figure out how we could streamline, strengthen, and improve the regulations. We wanted to do this with providers at the table, and we can share on our website which those providers were, but really making sure from school age to family childcare to faith-based childcare, everybody was around the table as we reviewed these regulations. We had to think about making sure that we could protect the health, safety, and well-being of children, thinking about the cost impact for private providers, recognizing where we knew more about how to keep kids safe, looking at what other laws have been passed, and taking all of that and turning that into a revised set of regulations. Next slide, please. We are now working to get those out to you for public comment. So a couple of steps in that process. So after meeting with the work group for nearly 20 plus hours over the course of a year and a half, we then took it to the Early Childhood Advisory Committee. What was a 6-hour meeting, including a fire drill that involved us taking the entire advisory committee down 21 flights of stairs. We did receive a full endorsement with a set of recommendations for changes, and we made those changes. And then we took it to the Board of Education to move forward the notice of regulatory intent. And so what that means is that you will soon see, likely this fall, a notice of regulatory intent and a set of draft regulations, which will be open for public comment. So make sure, I want to be very clear here. This is not at the process where we've already redone the regs and now you're expecting this to come to you and you have to execute them. This is still at the draft process. It's at the notice of action process. And this fall, you should expect a full set of revised regulations that we will ask for all of your feedback on through our public comment process. So huge thanks to all of the private providers who sat around the table with us for the greater part of the year and helped shape these regulations. And know that if you weren't part of that process or aren't part of the ECAD, that you will have every opportunity to contribute your public comment when those go online this fall. So, and that is the big item ahead for next year, is getting those available for public comment. Be a full 30-day public comment. We'll let you know via Readiness Connections. We'll send out an email notice. We want to get everybody in, looking at these regulations, kicking the tires, letting us know what they like and what they think needs to change before we take it to the board for review. We will also be working this year in response to laws that were passed by our General Assembly around EpiPens and the requirement that folks in our child day centers have EpiPens ready. We'll be kicking off a work group and working very closely with the Virginia Department of Health to help support you in that, complying with that statewide legal requirement, not a regulation that comes from us. This is a statewide law that was passed, and we'll provide protocols and training and other guidance. We're also working to improve our online system. So figuring out how you can apply online, how you can get your information online, continue to make improvements in that space. We know that there can be real challenges there, and working very closely with our partners at the state's technology agency to improve that. And I think most importantly, you've heard since moving Office of Child Care and Health and Safety to the Department of Education, the importance of partnership, right? And really focusing how we can partner with you to keep all of our infants, toddlers, and preschoolers safe. We know in the past year, we've had a unusually high number of infant fatalities, nearly all of which have been in unlicensed, unregulated care. And so what that means to us is that we need to continue to partner with every last provider who either legally has to be registered or licensed or might want to be voluntarily registered, because we really believe that by adopting the practices that we're calling for with health and safety, you can truly make a difference in providing a much safer environment. A lot of it is related to sleep, and really making sure that folks are following those safe sleep practices statewide. But we know it's important that we take on a partnership model so that folks want to work with us, be a part of our system, and that we are using the best in what we know of science and regulation to support the healthiest, most safe settings for our infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. Yes, many of you know Becca on our team has a little guy who just turned 1, and she can attest more than as any parent can. There's nothing that causes sort of the heart to go thump or causes a greater act of trust than dropping off your baby at a childcare or family childcare setting. And so we take very seriously, our important role to partner with you, particularly to keep our littlest learners, our infants and toddlers, safe across our public and private settings, from our very small family day homes to our very large centers and our public schools. All right, 5 out of 5. It's pretty exciting to be the person who gets to list out all of these accomplishments and talk about where we're going together. So let's get into our last area here. So really cool to look at this map and know that we have ready region partners that over the last year and a half, we've been able to support the standing out of awesome organizations in every last corner of the Commonwealth to support this important work that is, at the statewide level. We think it's key, whether it's making sure that VTB5 happens, that every eligible teacher is registered for Recognize B5, that we're getting, information about curriculum and other resources out there, or making sure that as many families as possible can participate in Head Start, mixed delivery, VPI, or private childcare. That really depends on our fantastic ready regions. And I hope we've got some of those partners on the phone today, but these guys have stood up incredible organizations that are focused on building relationships with our public and private partners across their region, measuring classrooms, getting folks on Link B5, registering teachers for Recognize B5, ensuring that we're supporting coordinated enrollment and maximizing those dollars locally. And starting this year, supporting the implementation of mixed delivery in bigger and bigger numbers, right? And think about who's supporting all of that growth from an infrastructure perspective, and that's our ready regions, deepening family engagement and continuing to really drive innovation. We know that each of our ready regions is closest to our leaders, our educators, our families, and our kids, and equipping them, making sure there's enough consistency and these practices statewide so all of our public-private programs are benefiting, but also providing enough flexibility so that each region can understand the needs of its educators, families, and kids, and customize its efforts to meet those unique needs in that unique context. Next slide, please. Whew. All of the accomplishments of these ready regions, it's hard to believe it's their really first birthday too, really 18-month birthday as well. Since their formal launch a year ago, they've engaged nearly 3,000 sites. They've established structures, staffing, public-private partnerships across the state. They've completed 25,000 observations across the state over the last few years. They've supported nearly 23,000 users to use Link B5. They've hired staff to support family engagement and coordinated enrollment, things we didn't even have staff for a few years ago. They've established family councils in every region, and they've really taken seriously their responsibility to partner, whether it's public or private partnerships, but working with improvement partners, working with business partners, working with school division partners, but kind of figuring out how do we cast a wide net of everybody who's supporting our kids and families birth to 5 to make sure that they can access an option that puts them on track for success. And at the core of their work is partnership. And they've done a tremendous amount of that in the last year. So huge thanks to all of our ready regions who have really knocked it out of their park in their first year of existence. We also have highlights on innovation, and I should note a huge thanks to both our Ready Region partners as well as our Virginia Early Childhood Foundation partners who've supported this work in both standing up the Ready Regions and also being cutting edge and figuring out how we can use, through a public-private partnership, public dollars to promote real innovation in a way, again, I think that Virginia is leading the nation on. So we first continue to build this data infrastructure, and Link B5 is not only important in terms of making sure that we can run VQB5, but it's ultimately giving us all sorts of new data that helps us design innovations that work really well for Virginia. So we can start to look at which kids are in which classrooms and where do they learn more, and how is that related to how much they're paid or what their experience is, and how do we connect that to how they do it at the beginning of kindergarten and third grade, and then how do we use that information to compel more investment in the system. So really important. Link B5 is not only something you do to get registered for Recognized B5, but truly helps Virginia be a national leader. We know that our regional partners are leading the way, piloting exciting initiatives like the Early Educator Fast Track Initiative, which you may have seen in the papers or in the media, but thinking about how we work with providers and with education entities to create a pipeline of qualified, well-compensated educators and ultimately build the supply. And we know that's one of the biggest challenges you face. And so 3 regions of the state being able to support providers to pay more, support teachers to start quickly, and then focus on how we work together to retain and support the success of those educators. We're trying new communication strategies across the state. Really, as I talked about before, focusing on partnering and really partnering with business and community leaders. And that's a big, big piece as we think about also how do we move forward on evolving, how do we address some of the very real challenges that our small businesses, our childcare businesses are facing, and starting to convene childcare business leaders and hearing from them on what they think are the most promising practices that we need to support, and using their voice and perspective to shape our policy efforts. And we think this is really, really important. We also continue to work really closely with the University of Virginia as our research to policy partners and making sure that they're running reports and briefs. You may have seen this. They also present and publish things on the national level. We just cited last week that we've published with our research partners more than 25 research briefs or findings that are truly not only informing our work here in Virginia on the workforce, on quality, on things like Recognized B5, but shaping the national conversation as well. And it wouldn't be possible without our Ready Regions, our private partners, and our research partners as well. So what's next in this space? Well, we'll lead with the thing you've heard me talk a lot about, which is continuing to gather and use data. You saw some of the slides I've shared today. We're using this data in all sorts of places. In addition to those 25 plus national reports, you'll see it on the VCF website. You'll hear it from Ready Regions, but really making sure that all of our partners have access to this data and are able to use it to think about what we need to keep the same, what we want to change, and to continue to compel more investment in our system. We also want to use this data to support improvement. That means it can't just be here in Richmond, but really supporting our regional leaders, whether it's our improvement partners or our Ready Region leaders, to use the information to make sure that we're meeting your needs, the needs of families and their preferences, the improvement needs of our programs. When we get the data in, we'll look at where are the programs and educators struggling most, and how do we make them the priority for support, for coaching, for training. We're piloting navigator positions here at the Department of Ed, in addition to really innovative ideas like the Fast Track Initiative that's focused on bringing educators on board. We recognize the challenges sometimes of navigating all the state systems for providers, and said, well, how do we make it easier? And can we create a fast track for providers to become publicly funded and offer more slots? And so in both Ready Region Southwest and Ready Region Central, hiring folks at the department whose sole job is to work with with providers or folks who might want to be providers to get licensed or registered, to sign up for a subsidy, and potentially to increase the number of kids that they serve with public dollars. And we've just launched in partnership with the Secretary of Education, Amy Gadara, and the Virginia Early Childhood Foundation, the new Commission on Early Childhood Care and Education. So really exciting legislation that was passed last year that charges a set of legislators and business leaders to tackle the financing that we need in our early childhood system. So it says, Commission, you need to meet, you need to look at the data about Virginia's early childhood system and develop strategies to finance our public-private parent choice system. The commission just kicked off last week. Really excited information, including some of the highlights that we shared with you all today, but 7 reasons why we think Virginia is a national leader, as well as a ton of data about how many more families want your services, how many more families want to be in your classrooms or settings, and how important our early childhood programming is to the broader Virginia economy, how it's making sure Virginia is the best state in the nation to live, work, and raise a family, and how the role that you're playing in making sure that we have historic unemployment and that all of our working families who want to work. And right now in the Commonwealth, we know that just under 70%, 7 out of 10 kids under the age of 6 have all available parents in the workforce. And so not only are you doing incredible work to put kids across the Commonwealth on track for success in kindergarten, but you're enabling their parents to work, you're enabling their families to work. And that's really important, critically important for the broader Virginia economy. And this Early Childhood Commission provides an opportunity for our public and private partners to share this important work and hopefully compel more investment to meet the growing demand of the families who want more and more of what you're offering. In the commission, and we'll just do this as a bit of a sneak preview, encourage you to go out and check the slides, which we can make available, and we'll make sure to include in our readiness connections as well. We shared a couple of really revealing slides, and I'm not going to share them all with you because we're already at 150, and because I want you to go and check out the slides or watch the video. But one of the ones that got the heads in the room nodding was we shared this data. And this data says this says, hey, we know, and you hear anytime you open the paper or turn on the TV about how expensive college is. And so what this slide does is it shows you the cost of college, 4 years of college, as compared to the cost of infant, toddler, and preschool care, right? Getting your kid to the school readiness. You might think when you see these esteemed logos, JMU, Mary Washington, Mason, ODU, Virginia State, Longwood, that the blue bars would be the cost of college, right? We've heard how expensive it is. That's not actually what this shows. What might be surprising to you, and I know what was surprising to our commission, is that the blue bars are the cost of the early childhood experience, and the gray bars are the cost of 4 years of college. So in many places of the state, such as Capital Area and North Central, it is way more expensive to have your kid go through childcare than it is to have your kid go to a top-notch college. I think that's really important as we think about how do we make high-quality public-private early childhood available for more families, is recognizing how expensive it is right now and how we need to support our families to be able to afford it. Because as you see from this graphic, it is way more expensive in nearly every other area of the state than college. And we always traditionally think of college being the thing that you save for your child. And so at a point where you're way earlier in your career, you got to pay way more than college. That was a bit of a game changer for our commission members as they start to think about financing. We also shared sort of how far we've come. And we shared some of those graphs that I shared earlier with that increase in demand, but also to acknowledge that we've got a long way to go when we think about our work together. And I'll end with these slides here. So what this shows is that while we've grown significantly, and you'll remember the data point I cited earlier, more than 41% growth since pre-pandemic, most of this is still for preschoolers. So about 64% of this supports our 3 to 5 year olds across the board, BPI, Head Start, mixed delivery, and child care subsidy. We've increased now up to 20% supports our infants and toddlers, but we know there's still a lot of demand there. Now it's 16% supports school age. So again, efforts to make sure that we're We're across the birth to 5 spectrum, supporting more infants and toddlers, and we've been somewhat successful. However, move to the next slide. You'll see that we still have significant unmet need. And so when we look at which kids would be potentially low income or otherwise at risk, what you see, the blue bar is how many kids we're serving, so higher than it's ever been before. But the orange portion shows what we still need. And what you see is we still have a ton of over 80,000 preschoolers who lack access to publicly funded early childhood. And the vast majority of these are 3-year-olds. And then even more, over 140,000 in terms of an upper boundary here, infants and toddlers. So more than 90% of eligible infants and toddlers currently lack access to publicly funded early childhood. So you marry those sets of slides together. On the one hand, it's more expensive than college to pay for it. And on the other hand, we know that there's still tremendous need out there, right? And what we shared with the commission is this is really compelling data. As we think about what Virginia needs, we should build on the progress, and everybody should feel incredibly proud of how far we come and how many more families are demanding or seeking your services, but also recognize that there's a lot of work to be done and that we will need this commission to continue to support this work. The next slide, please. And this is what we'll leave you with today, which is that we have made tremendous strides. And as a result of your investments in family engagement, your investments in health and safety, your efforts around quality improvement and using curriculum and supporting learning, and your investments to serve as many kids as possible, as well as the work of our Ready regions and all the innovations that you're piloting statewide and all the work that your educators are taking on, more families than ever before are seeking out your services, are seeking out the services of our public-private birth to 5 parent choice system. But still, for every 1 child that we serve, and we're serving way more than we ever served before, there are 3 out there who still need access. And that is, as we wrap up our state of the state and think about all that we've accomplished together, I leave you with 2 thoughts. One is great appreciation for all of the work that you've done, all of the work of your educators, and in light of even the challenges that remain for our sector, for our birth to 5 sector. And note that we want to continue to roll up our sleeves and work shoulder to shoulder with you, with the commission, with our leaders at the regional level and the state level, to continue to build this extraordinary system to make sure that we can serve more kids and put more kids on track for success, so that we'll see an increase in school readiness that lines up very nicely with the increase in families that are seeking your services. So with that, as I predicted, we are right at time, and we'll go quickly to our next steps. And know we've got some questions that we will work to publish answers to, along with the slides themselves. But as we go forward, please continue to work closely with you. We had more than 300 folks signed up today. Make sure all of you are signed up for Readiness Connections to get our weekly updates on what's happening. Make sure you know who your Ready region is. You can click on that link when we send this out, or you can Google Ready regions and VCF and it'll pop right out. But they are the source for all information for providers as we go forward. And get ready for year 1 of VQV5 and our highest or biggest ever year of recognized V5, August 15th. So less than 3 weeks away from opening registration for VQV5 this year and recognized V5. Big year, thousands and thousands of observations, lots of support for educators, and hopefully capturing the data that compels future investment so that we continue to serve more kids in response to family demand and help ensure that every kid in the Commonwealth has the opportunity to come to school ready. With that, a huge thanks to the Department of Education team that helped make the State of the State possible, to all of our public and private partners, Virginia Early Childhood Foundation, our Ready Region partners, our improvement partners, Elevate Early Education, all of our school division partners, our Child Care Association and Family Child Care Association, and everybody who supports our incredible work. But it has been a heck of a year, and we have more exciting things ahead of us. And with great appreciation, as my littlest guy heads off to kindergarten, please know that we are so grateful for your work, the work of our public-private system, and we look forward to future partnership. With that, I'm signing off. Thank you, everybody, and have a safe day, and we'll talk soon. Take care, everyone.